Hello everyone and welcome to Sales Hacks to Close the Deal. I'm Vasil Azarov, online events producer at Business to Community. I'm also a founder and CEO of the Growth Marketing Conference, Silicon Valley's largest growth marketing event. Very excited to be your moderator today. And this webinar is brought to you by the Growth Marketing Conference as well as the Startup Socials, which is a global community of entrepreneurs built to connect and empower people in the startup ecosystem. Before we get started, a few housekeeping reminders. This presentation is being recorded and it will be available on demand within 48 hours of today's broadcast. As usual, you will receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording. Very excited to introduce our presenter today, Alice Heyman, who is a great advocate for startups and small businesses. We met at the Startup Sales Workshops last year in San Francisco, which was great. For over 20 years, Alice has been helping companies to increase their sales. She developed her sales expertise while at her family company, which was started in the late 90s. And while there, she worked with some of the largest clients like Coca-Cola, Hewlett-Packard, John Deere, and Fidelity Investment. She helped the company grow, and before it sold in 1998, she started up her own company. Being an entrepreneur, she loves starting new things. She has been featured in Entrepreneur Startup Magazine as well as Selling Power. She shares her expertise in her own blog, smartsalestips.com, which I encourage you to check out, as well as she contributes to Nimble, HubSpot blogs, and many, many others. So with that, I would like to give a warm welcome to Alice. Alice, please take it away.
Welcome everybody. It's just great to be here today, and I know you're all excited to hear about some sales hacks so that you can all close more deals. And no matter where you are in the life cycle of your business, it seems like everyone really, of course, wants to get more business and close more deals. But some of those deals just stick, and they don't seem to move forward. We lose the communication with the people. All kinds of things happen. And so what we want to do is make sure that we can keep the deal flow going, make sure that our sales funnel, or some of you call it a pipeline, is full, and that we have plenty of leads that can turn into great business. So get your pen out and get ready, or get your tablet ready to take some notes. And I also want to let you know that after this event, we're going to send you some handouts that you'll see as I move along through the slides, but we'll be sending those to you so that you can have them to use them afterwards as well. And if you have questions, of course, please chat them in, because Vasil will be monitoring those, and at the end we will have time for questions. So excited to get started. So we want to talk about the key to success, right? I mean, we all want to close more deals. What's the magic? How do you do it? What's it going to take to close more deals? And not just close deals with anybody, but really close deals with customers who you're going to love working with customers who are going to be ideal for you, with customers who are going to become loyal and do more business with you, and they're becoming a walking advertisement telling everyone else that they should buy from you as well. That's what we're really all looking for. It's not just any business, but really great business that helps propel our companies forward. So we want that success. And really the key is very simple. The key is preparation. And in fact, it's so simple that most people skip doing it. We get so busy, and of course many of you are business owners, and you're running crazy startups, so much going on. You've got product development, you have people to hire, like everything that has to be done at your company. Everybody's looking at you, and there's so much to do. So we don't always take the time to prepare properly, and it's the major reason, and statistics will show this, that it is the major reason we're not closing the deals we want to close. So I'm going to convince you today, I hope, to take the time to prepare. That really is the main sales hack that I'm going to share. take the time to prepare, and let's take a look at that. So the question is, are you ready for the sales calls that you go on? It's going to be really difficult to close a deal if you're not ready for the sales call. Now some of you think you're ready, I know that. But I'm going to show you some things you might not have thought about before. Because instead of being ready, what many great salespeople do, and those great salespeople also being the business owner, entrepreneur, head of the startup, they fly by the seat of their pants. Now I know that some of you are chuckling right now even though I can't hear you because I know it's you. I know that you go into sales calls unprepared. I know that you wing it. And you know what? We do a lot of business this way. But we could do more. And just by preparing, I can guarantee you that you can increase your close ratio 20% or more. So if you could do that, would you? Would you take the few minutes to do the planning that would increase your sales by 20% or more? I think that most of you would. My question for you right now is, how do you currently plan before a sales call? And would you just go ahead and chat that in and we'll be able to see the answers? What do you do before the sales call? Maybe do a little research. Maybe you talk to somebody else at your company about it. What do you do? Okay, I'm seeing things like Google search, confirm the agenda, research their business, love it. Try to have a clear objective. A lot of looking at their website, doing research on the org. Write a script and prepare questions, love it. Try to meet them beforehand. Okay, look for points of interest that they'll be interested in. Yes. Use LinkedIn. These are great answers, great answers. What I do know about a lot of busy people is before they go on a sales call, their planning is slim to none. Sometimes it looks like this, and jot a few notes on the back of a napkin. And sometimes just before they walk in the door or just before they get out of the car, they think through it in their head and think about what they're going to do. I'm going to tell you that you will not get the best results doing that kind of planning. Now some of the things that many of you mentioned in your chat will get you better results, and we're going to talk about that. So I'm going to ask you again, if taking a few minutes to do the kind of planning I'm going to show you would increase your sales 20% or more, would you do it? And I'm sure you all are going to give me a resounding yes. So how do you prepare for a sales call? What do you need to know in order to sell your product or service? You see, because it's about the customer, and we all know that, and we hear it all the time in everything you read on the Internet. Customer focus, collaborative selling. We've heard it a million times. So you have to sit down and say to yourself, what do I really need to know about this company, about their industry, about their competitors, about the way they run their company, about the CEO? What do I really need to know in order to sell them the product or service that I have to offer? What do I need to know about their goals and what they are trying to accomplish? I know what I'm trying to accomplish, but what are they trying to accomplish, and how can my product or service help them accomplish their goal? That's the kind of thinking that goes into the call preparation that I'm talking about. And yes, you can find a lot of this on the Internet, on their website, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter. There is a lot of information out there. You can also find a lot of it by getting to know some of the key players prior to actually going into the meeting. So a lot of the things that you chatted in can help you. The next thing to think about is, what information does your customer need in order to make this purchase? What will they need? You see, we think we know what they need, but we're not really sure. We're kind of guessing. We don't really know how they buy until we start asking questions about how they buy. And some of the things that we care about and think are so great about our product and service, they might not care about at all. They may be looking at something completely different. So before you go on a sales call, the first thing you do is sit down and start letting these thoughts run through your head. If you have a team of people who are going to meet with the customer then, or the prospect, then you want to discuss these out loud. Maybe get a whiteboard and actually ask these questions out loud and start brainstorming the answers to them and see what comes up. You might even want to involve some people from other departments. Now this is all, how much preparation you are going to do is all dependent on how big of a deal this is, how prestigious of a prospect it is, all of those kinds of things. So some of the sales calls you go on, you won't spend a lot of time to prepare. You'll spend 15 to 30 minutes. Some of the sales calls you go on, you will spend an hour or more with your team preparing, because what you want is the best result humanly possible out of that sales call, and to move the sale forward toward the close quickly, shortening the sales cycle. So let's take a look at the components of effective sales call planning. These are the hacks, right? These are the things that you are going to do differently that are going to make the difference. And again, the biggest hack is just planning. So simple and yet not done effectively enough. So let's take a look at the first piece. Now this worksheet that you see on the screen, we are going to send you this in a Word document so that you can use it over and over again to prepare for your sales calls. And in fact, you can even customize it to your own company and some of the things you need. It's just a simple Word document, but I've used it hundreds and hundreds of times to have successful sales calls, not just for myself, but with all of my clients as well. So some of the information that you need is very, very basic, right? It's just who, what, when, where, right? And so you start off by just the simple things. Who is the salesperson that's in charge of this prospect? And when I say prospect, it could be a customer that you're going to meet with so that you can sell more or different products to. Or it could be a prospect that you've never met with before. So just keep that in mind. So there's at least one person who's in charge of this. That salesperson might also be the owner of the company, but whoever it is. Basic information, the name of the company, and then who else from your team you're going to take, and who from the company. You may have 3, 4, or 5 people, and again, it's a Word document so you can expand it. And then as much information as you can get about them, especially their title, or if you can find out what role they're playing, that's awesome too. The next part is, what is the sales opportunity? What are you trying to sell them? Now of course this is all about you, but we do have to know what we're trying to sell them. Now sometimes early on when we're meeting with companies, we don't know which of our products or services will be the best fit. We're just doing a discovery call to figure that out. So we might not put a product down. You might just put discovery or something like that. But if you know that they're interested in a certain product or service, you can put that information in there. And if you have a sales funnel or a sales pipeline, which might look something like that, then you can tell at what stage you're in. So get that information down. Now on the opportunity, again, you might have no idea. It's okay to leave it blank. We don't want to guess. Our job is to go talk to the people who are interested in buying from us and determine what is the best fit. Discover through collaboration and discussion. And we do that by asking great questions. So if you do know the opportunity, that's great. If you don't, leave it blank. And again, if you are using a funnel or a pipeline, think about where you are in the sales process, because we do different types of work at different stages, and we ask different questions. So when I'm prospecting and I'm at the very beginning, I'm just trying to find out some information, I'm going to ask very different questions than when I'm near the close. They've already got a proposal, they've already got price sheets, they've already got everything they need, and now we're just really waiting to sign the final contract and close the deal. I ask different questions at that phase. So we don't want to ask the wrong question too early in the sales process and mess it up. We really have to know where we are. And some of these sales we know take 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, a year. And during that sales process, we will go on many sales calls. And on each of these sales calls, we want to prepare the right information and the right questions for those particular calls. So the next section that you will need to fill out is about what you need to do before the call besides filling out your worksheet. And that can be things like you chatted in earlier. Research on the Internet, connecting with prospects through LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or on the phone, or in person at a networking event, or for coffee. And then gathering your own internal resources. In my opinion, you can't do too much research. You want to go in there armed and knowing. With the Internet being what it is, you will sorely disappoint your prospects if you don't know the most basic information about them. I like to go to their website and read anything that the president or owner of the company may have put on there. I like to read the most recent news about them. I use Google Alerts to push information to me about the companies that I'm prospecting and about my clients. I use as many different tools as I can to be current. I love to go to their LinkedIn company page and see what they've posted recently. Are they hiring? Now, maybe you're selling something that has nothing to do with hiring, but if they have 5, 6, 10 jobs posted like I saw on one of my clients recently, you know they have a lot on their mind and a lot on their plate. And if they're so focused on hiring and all the resources are going there, they may not have the resources to do another project at this time. So even though you think one has nothing to do with the other, it could possibly have a lot to do with your sale. So you want to gather as much information from as many different places as you possibly can, and even talk to a few of the people ahead of time that you're going to be meeting with. I like to send an agenda by email to everyone, and make sure the agenda is clear and ask them what else they want to put on the agenda. Sometimes I will send the agenda individually to each person I'm going to be meeting with and ask them a couple of different questions on that email. I want to start to get them engaged before I actually even meet with them. Now I know some of you are saying, well, yeah, that's great, but they won't even call me back. Or they don't have time to talk to me, or they're not going to answer my emails because they're too busy. That's okay. At least you sent it. And sometimes I'll send the email with the agenda, and these are the things that we're going to be covering. Is there anything else? And then I'll make a phone call, and if I get their voicemail, I'll say, I want to be sure that you got the agenda that I sent you, and that if you have any other items to add to it, please let me know. I over-communicate because I want to show them that their experience working with me is going to be a great one, that I'm going to take care of them, and that I'm going to make sure that things go well. Okay? Now I'm not going to be a pest, but I am going to communicate very clearly. I don't want to step into a meeting where I'm unprepared or they're unprepared. They didn't really know what we were going to be talking about. So this section of your plan, of course, you'll fill out and figure out all the research that you need to do. And then you're going to think about what their needs are, the outcome, and how you're actually going to open the meeting. I cannot tell you how many meetings I have sat in with people who waste my time or waste the prospect's time by jibber-jabbering all over the place and not getting to the point or stating why we're all there. Now, of course, you want to do the niceties. How are you? Great to see you. I mean, if you know these people a little bit or their kids, you know, how are the kids? These kinds of things, yes, do the niceties and then say, thank you for meeting with me. I know we have 30 minutes today. I know we have 15 minutes today. I know we have an hour today. And our agenda is very clear. These are the things we're going to cover. Now, is there anything else you want to add to this agenda before we get started? Or has anything changed that I need to know about before we get started? So I literally want to have that statement ready to go. I don't want to take a chance of blundering my way through that. So on the call plan, I literally write it out. Now this opening statement, this is one of the biggest hacks I can give you. You can hack this call plan by making sure you clearly state that, and you can do that by writing it down and practicing it. The other thing I want you to think about is the desired outcome for the sale. Not just from your point of view, for the sales call, not just from your point of view, but from theirs. Why are they meeting with you anyway? What is their desired outcome? So if we stay focused on the customer and thinking, what do they need to know? What's their desired outcome? How does this agenda meet their needs? We do very, very well if we can stay focused like that. All right. The next piece of it is your differentiation. I know that you all have competitors. Some of them are very obvious competitors, and some of them are not so obvious. For example, I provide sales training and sales coaching for some of my clients. They could also do that internally if they have an internal trainer or an internal coach. So there are other sales training and coaching companies out there that are my obvious competitors. But if they have an internal person who's thinking of doing it, that could be my competition as well. And so I really need to be thinking about, how do I differentiate myself, my company, my products and services from all of the different types of competition I may have to close this deal? So a lot of people like to talk about features and benefits. And I think, that's very old school in many ways. But I do think you should know what features you have that are unique, and not what the benefit is in general, but how it will benefit this customer specifically. So all that research you did earlier should help drive the answers to this section. Really important. Now, you're not just going to blab this out at the meeting. You're going to have it ready. And when they start asking you the questions about why they should use your product and how it will work, you can start to say, well, you mentioned that you needed X. Our product or service can deliver that uniquely in this way, and that will benefit you because you said you needed this. So you get prepared to be able to speak that way, and you have your ammunition ready. So think about it. What do you offer that's unique, and how will that benefit them? Now the next hack that's really important is getting your questions ready. Now 50 questions is too many. I don't know the right amount of questions, but again, it depends where you are in the sales process. You might need 3, 4, 5 questions, but you also don't want to bombard people with questions. I like to phrase out a few very open-ended questions that will help me get them talking right at the beginning. And then I have some very pointed questions that I need to get answered so that I can move the sale forward. So what questions you'll ask depend on where you are in the sales process. If you're very early in the sales process and you're just getting to know them, you want to learn about their company in general and what they're doing and what their goals are. Then you want to move to what their needs are for a product or service like yours. Then you want to move to what solutions they've already tried, or what they've been doing, how they've been solving their problem currently. And then you can move into some of the ways you might be able to help them. Now again, depending on how much time you have, and depending on whether they've asked you to do a demo or a presentation, you're going to have to work this differently. But if somebody who I don't know at all and haven't had a chance to have a sales call with prior asks me to do a demo, I usually say no. I say our first conversation is for us to learn about you so that when we do a demo, we can present exactly the things that match what will help your company versus just doing a general demo. And if I get in a position where I'm sort of forced to do a demo, I will wrap these questions into my demo or presentation, and I'll start with whatever slide I have and say, before we get started with the demo, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. And I get my questions in that way, and then I'll move to the next slide and show them something a little bit about the product or service and ask another question, maybe something like, have you seen solutions like this before, or what other solutions are you looking at that are similar to ours? And I'll get them talking again. Now, I am doing the demo that they asked me to do, but I'm doing it in a way that has them talking and getting them involved instead of me just running through the whole demo without any feedback, and at the end they go, well, thank you, we'll get back to you. I don't want to do that. So get your questions ready and think about where you are in the sales process and which questions will help you the most and how much time you have, because if you only have a short time, then you have to get the most important questions answered, of course, very quickly. So talking about questions, I have here for you 10 tough questions that you need to ask at some point in the sales process. Again, it depends on how well you know them, how many times you've met with them, what they've asked you to do, where you are in the sales process, but you will not be able to close the deal without having the answers to these questions. And I guarantee you, if you have a deal that's stuck right now, and you take these 10 tough questions, which I promise I will email to you after the training is over today. If you ask these 10 tough questions to each other, whoever's stuck with their sale, I will bet you cannot answer them all, and that is why the deal is stuck, or that's part of the reason the deal is stuck. Sometimes things get stuck for reasons completely beyond our control. Something's gone crazy at the company we were trying to sell to. They got pulled off onto other priorities, and we can't do anything about that. We just want to try to find out if it's on hold for that reason. But many times it gets stuck because we haven't asked the right questions and we haven't firmly established what the next steps are. So the first question, maybe not so tough, but we definitely need the answer to it, is how will our solution meet your needs? You know, we're so excited to present our products and services because we love our products and services and we just want to get out there and tell everybody about them. But it's important for us to really slow down for a minute and think, how will this solution meet their needs? And we need to know that from them, not just guessing. And if it doesn't meet their needs and it's not a good fit, we want to be the first one to tell them that. You know what, we can't do what you need. This is not a good fit. We think we might know somebody we can refer you to, but we don't do that. So sometimes we get too far down the sales process, we haven't asked this question, and we can't close the deal because you know what? Our solution doesn't really meet their needs and we're sort of forcing the fit. They didn't really recognize that it doesn't meet the needs, but they kind of feel it, kind of know it, but haven't voiced it, you're thinking, wow, it's not really fitting perfectly. We're going to have to bend and stretch in ways that we didn't really want to. No, we don't want to get down the path and be there. We want to know right up front, how will our solution meet your needs? Another thing that we want to know is, what other solutions have you considered? Now, you notice I didn't say, who's my competitor for this deal, which we all know they're not going to answer. But if I ask it like this, I get to find out who my competitors are. What other solutions have you considered? They say things like, well, we do have an internal training team, and we could have them run some sales training. Oh, interesting. Okay, good to know. Well, we've talked to 3 other training companies. Oh, very good. Good to know. Then I might follow that with, well, what have you learned from them? Or what would be the pros and cons of using those other solutions? I am trying to be very collaborative with them and have a conversation going and help them make their decision. Now hopefully I'll be the best solution and they'll choose me. But if I'm not, I want to have been in a position where I help them make the right decision, so either they'll come back to me later or they'll tell other people who need my products and services about me. So I always want to stay in that position where I'm helping them and collaborating with them. Who will be involved in making the decision? Of course, we all know this is critically important, but a lot of times we get blocked from the people who are making the decision. People say, oh, you just need to talk to me, don't talk to anybody else. The minute I hear that, I know I'm in trouble, because I know that it's impossible in this day and age that one person at a company has the power to make a decision completely on their own, especially for a high ticket or complex item. It's just not going to happen. So if somebody says that to me, I've got to figure out a way to work around that. Now there's some ways to present that or prevent that I can't really cover here right now, but quickly just to say that the more contacts you have at any given organization, the better off you are. And this is where LinkedIn, of course, comes in very handy, because you can find many contacts at each organization. So who will be involved in the decision-making process? I want to know that. I want them to lay it out and explain it to me. Tell me how, who's involved and how they're going to be involved, and will I be able to meet with them? And if the answer is no, I can't meet with them, then I want to ask them this next question, which is, what's the best way to include everyone involved in the decision-making process? So if I can't talk to them directly, if this is a committee and they're going to take it back to somebody else, that's fine. I want to know what's the best way to include them. So do we write something up and send it to them? Do we get a recording and send it to them? How do I help you interact with the other people making a decision that I never get to meet? Tell me how to do that. And usually they will. It's amazing. Of course, we've got the budget question, and this creates all kinds of chaos. People don't want to ask the budget question. People don't want to answer the budget question. It's just a crazy thing. But it's very, very important. And so I always ask it, and then the kind of answer that I get tells me a lot about how my deal is going to move forward. So if I just simply say, what's your budget for this project? And they say, we don't have a budget. That leads me down a path. Okay, so you don't have a budget yet. Is one of the things you're hoping that I will do is help you build a budget? Oh, that would be great. All right. Or I can say something like, you don't have a budget currently. How does your company usually establish a budget for something like this? What have you done in the past when you've had to establish a budget for something like this? So I'm asking these in a very non-threatening way, because obviously they can't make a purchase if they don't have a budget. So why would I spend a lot more of my time trying to sell to them if they can't tell me what their budget is? Now sometimes when I say, what's your budget, they say, well, what's the price? Well, if that's a simple answer, then tell them the price. But if it's not a simple answer, then you have to say, well, this is how we do it. And we can work within your budget once we have a solid understanding of what that is. So don't be afraid to ask the budget question. It's critical. Everyone who's trying to buy something knows that they have to have money to buy it with. It just becomes uncomfortable because we're uncomfortable. If you're not uncomfortable asking it, it's not uncomfortable. They may be uncomfortable answering, but then you may be able to help them. On what factors will you make your decision? See, I want to know this. Is the factor price only? Is it location? Is it delivery? What are the factors? Are they looking at multiple factors to choose? Maybe they've got 3 or 4 companies they're deciding between. I want to know on what factors they'll make their decision. If they can't answer this question, again, I have more information about how this sale is going to go. If they don't even know how they're going to make the decision, how are they going to make a decision? It's going to stall the sales process. So if they say, well, gosh, of course we're looking at price and we're looking at the product features, and then that gives me, okay, well good. So how important is price? Is it more important for you to get the lowest price, or is it more important for you to get the features that you need? Oh, no, the features are more important. That's what most people will say. Okay, great. So tell me which features are most important. Tell me which things are most important. Tell me what's most important to you. Again, this is just a really helpful question. Now, we have to understand timelines. And of course we want to know when our deal is going to close. But people make big mistakes by either not asking these questions or asking them in the wrong way. What is your timeline for implementation is more important than when are you going to sign this contract. And for many of you who have complicated implementations, you have to be able to fit the timeline that's in their mind. You might get the deal closed and then realize you can't meet their timeline for implementation. That's a problem none of us want to have. So before I ask them the timeline for making the decision and when they're going to sign the contract and all those things, the first thing I want to know is what's their timeline for implementation. For me, if they're going to run training, I have to know what's the date, right? Can I be prepared in time for that date that I'm supposed to show up and do the training? If you have to install something, and for you that installation means you have to order something to be built in a special way, have it delivered to your office to have some preparations done, have it delivered to the customer's office, and then send a tech over there, you have to know how many other installations you're doing, whether you'll have someone available, whether the materials will be available. All of those things become critically important. And I have seen so many unhappy customers because this implementation piece gets messed up. So before I ever close a deal, I have to ask this question. What is your timeline for implementation? And then I can move from there to, so with that being the case, what's your timeline for making this decision? And I can be more involved in that then because I can say, well, our implementation takes this many days. In order for us to do that for you, you will have had to make your decision by this date. Now do you see how I am more in charge of this timeline and this sales process and the whole sales cycle? Because I'm asking questions that get them thinking, that get them having to make decisions so that we can move forward. Of course, before you leave any meeting, if it's your very first meeting, your 5th meeting, their closing meeting, is there anything else we need to discuss? Just don't leave without saying those words. Now I know sometimes they're rushing you and they only had 15 minutes, and I get all that. If somebody's only giving you 15 minutes though, you really do need to consider, are they very serious about buying from you? Maybe it's not a good use of your time. But if somebody's given you a fair chance and you've had a good conversation, you want to make sure you leave enough time to say, Is there anything else we need to discuss? And then, of course, you move to the next steps. And again, I cannot tell you how many salespeople I have worked with, business owners I have worked with, people who are making sales that do not write down the next step prior to leaving the meeting. They just, oh, okay, great, all good, yeah, we'll get back in touch, that kind of loosey-goosey stuff. Based on our conversation today, what are our next steps? Right? We've got to get to that piece. So those are the 10 task questions you need to ask. Now I see that I'm getting close to the end of the time. I do want to remind everybody that I'm going to stay on for questions for about 10 to 15 minutes. I'm just going to be wrapping this up. And we are going to be emailing you this article with the 10 tough questions, and we are going to be emailing you this worksheet and the recording as well, because I know many people have been asking about the recording. So the final couple hacks on this workshop and this worksheet here are just a few. So we have to be prepared before we go into the meeting with the potential objections. What objections might come up? Now if you've been selling for any length of time, you know what objections these prospects have about your products and services. It might be timing, it might be money, it might be features and benefits. There might be, well, how does this work? There's objections that come up all the time. If you don't know because you're new and you haven't had very many opportunities to offer your products and services to people, objections are going to come up and you're going to have to handle them as they come. So you may want to just be thinking, what are the things that people might say? Well, will it work this way or it doesn't? I don't see that. What kinds of things? And then when they come up with the objection, you need to be sure and validate it. You need to say something like, oh, I understand. You're concerned about how it will work. You're concerned about the delivery. So you validate their objection. Now there's an article on my blog about this specifically that gives you lots of good information about how to handle objections. And I have an ebook on it as well, so you can get this information. But think about what objections might come up, how you might validate them, what questions you would ask to clarify their objection further, and then what solutions you have to offer. And there is that section on the worksheet to fill that out. The next one is getting commitment. So a lot of times people leave the meeting without getting a commitment. Now getting a commitment doesn't mean closing the deal, because if this is my first meeting with you, I don't expect to close the deal. Sometimes getting the commitment is closing the deal, because that's where you are in your sales process. You get that commitment to close the deal. But you need to think, what's the appropriate commitment for where I am in the sales process, and how should I ask that? What is the question? So for example, if it's the first meeting and I just met with one of the people who are going to be making the decision, the next appropriate commitment might be to get a conference call or a meeting with the others who will be involved in making the decision. If I've had all of those people in the meeting and now they'd like a demo, then the next appropriate commitment will be to do the demo. So I want to think in my mind as I'm preparing to go on this sales call, at this stage in the sales process, what would be a good commitment to get at the end of the call, even if it's not to close the deal, because we're not there yet. And when I say call, remember this could be on the phone, it could be on Skype, it could be a WebEx, it could be in person in their conference room. We do sales calls many different ways today, and all of them are appropriate. But this sales call planning works whether it's Skype, phone, webinar, or face-to-face. Then the last piece is the next steps. Now you won't be able to fill this out ahead of time, but this section is there to remind you that you cannot leave the meeting without the next steps. And if they won't set a next step with you at the end of the meeting, they are not serious about buying. So that gives you a clue, and it tells you where this opportunity is going or not going. If you've done your job well, they're going to agree to a next step. And I write down the date and time, and then when I leave and get back to my office, I send them an email that says, great meeting today. Here are the things that we covered, and here are our next steps, and the date and time of those next steps. If there are any changes, please let me know. So I get that email out to them right away and confirm what we talked about and what our next steps are. So all of this is going to help you close more deals. You can increase your sales 20% or more, I promise you, if you will use this process. Now you may have to pick and choose which sales calls you're going to spend a lot of time on, but you can certainly take 15 minutes before any sales call and do this. So remember, once you have your plan made, it's always good to practice. Find someone else in your office that you can practice this with, especially if it's a very important sales call with high dollar stakes, prestigious accounts, or a big customer. You'll want to make your plan and then review it with the other people on your team and practice it a bit. Now before I take questions, I want you to do one thing for me. I want you to chat in how you're going to use this information to help improve your sales calls. And I'm going to open it up for questions. So I'm watching the chat, and I want to see how you're going to use this information to help you.
Great. Thank you so much, Alice, for this wonderful presentation. I learned a lot personally, although it's the second time I'm seeing this. And it looks like our audience enjoyed it as well. I see a lot of great questions coming in through the chat as well as some feedback. So we have time for a few. And I would like to cover a couple of tactical and technical questions first, and then talk a little bit deeper and talk about the bigger picture and then go deeper as well. So Paul is asking a very general question in terms of the emphasis on preparation. Do you, and again, I'm assuming that you spend different amount of time depending on how many calls a day you make and whether you're working on the one large enterprise type of deal or your SDR doing a lot of sales calls on the daily basis. But how do you determine how much time do you need to prepare for each sales call? Do you have a special secret formula for that or something along those lines?
Okay, so this is a really important question. If I am an SDR sitting in an office making a lot of calls, and they're very similar, one call after the other. Let's say I'm trying to set appointments, or I'm kind of moving people to the next step. I can have a call plan that can work for the majority of those calls. So I can sketch out using that same worksheet, I can sketch out questions that I can use for many different people. Because if I'm making the same type of call over and over again, then I can have one call plan that will help me with all of those calls. So they don't have to be completely individualized in that type of a case where you're making 50 or 100 calls in a day. That is really a different thing. But the thing that many organizations are skipping that is just critical is the research. I get emails and calls every day from salespeople who have no idea who I am. It is embarrassing. You can take 3 seconds to go to somebody's LinkedIn profile before you pick up the phone and at least see their face, learn something about them. You can go to their website. You can take a couple of seconds, maybe a whole minute, 60 seconds before you pick up the phone and make the next call to look to see who you're calling. And that way, now you're talking to a face if you were able to find their face on the Internet somewhere, which undoubtedly you mostly will be able to do, and be speaking to a face. And you can even say, hey, Alice, I was just on your LinkedIn profile. I'm calling you today because what I'd like to do is to take 30 seconds of your time to tell you about something and see if you want to schedule an appointment, right? that kind of call is a little bit different. You don't need a lot of call planning, and you don't need that worksheet for that call, but you do need to do the research before you make that kind of call. Now, if your calls are more in-depth and you're not just pounding them out, you don't have to do hundreds a day kind of thing. Again, it depends. There's no secret sauce. How prestigious is this prospect? How much money is involved here? Is this a big, big customer? If the stakes are small, yeah, you don't need to do as much call planning. If the stakes are high, you definitely want to take the time to do the call planning. So if you have an appointment and a scheduled call with somebody who is interested in your product or service, take a minimum of 15 minutes to work through this worksheet and prepare for the call. If you have several people who you're going to be on a conference call with or doing a demo, and it's a deal you really want to get, take 30 minutes to plan for the call. So use your judgment and think about really what do you need to be successful.
Great. This is great, Alice. And we have a lot of follow-up questions as you were explaining, and specifically on the cold calling, something that I would like to address, as well as following up and maybe warming up your call with the email. What do you have any specific recommendations for cold calls? And also, as a second part of it, or if you wish, you can answer it as a second question, is email an effective sales introduction? Would you combine those two? In which cases do you do cold calls, just cold calls? In which case you do just emails? In which case you combine both?
Okay. I like to do sales the easy way. Now, I'd like anybody out there to raise their hand if they would like to do sales the hard way. Anybody? Right? No one's going to say, oh, I want to make it harder. I want to make my job harder. Let's do sales the easy way. If we have to contact people that we don't know and have never met and have absolutely no connection with, that is very hard. Now, I recognize that in some selling situations you are forced to do that, to just make call after call after call. You know what I would say to you? Get a new job. Because there are companies out there who understand what selling is today. People want to know you. They want to like you. They want to trust you. They don't have time to listen to your sales spiel on the phone. They don't have time to be interrupted by salespeople selling something that they don't want or need or weren't even thinking about at this moment. You really have to put yourself in the shoes of the person who you're trying to reach. So what I recommend when you have to call people, reach people that you don't know, is that you have a multifaceted approach. You use email properly. To learn how to use email properly, go to salesfolk.com and download their ebook, salesfolk.com. I can actually chat that in, or you can chat that in, Vessel, salesfolk.com. She has a great ebook on how to write great emails. I get the most embarrassing emails in my inbox from salespeople telling me all about themselves and their products, I this and we that, nothing about me. I delete them instantly. Okay? So first of all, if you're going to use email, it can be extraordinarily effective if you do it right, and it can be extraordinarily ineffective if you do it wrong. You need good subject lines, and you need short, to the point content that tells me why I need something, tells me that you understand who I am and what I'm doing in my space. So the messaging has to be really top-notch. LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook can help you connect with people. Now, I don't want to connect with people I don't know on my Facebook, so you need to be able to write me some sort of a message or something that's going to let me know who you are. Don't try to sell to me immediately. Try to get to know me first. On LinkedIn, it's the same thing. I connect with you, and you instantly send me a terrible sales message. It's poorly written, it has spelling mistakes, and it's all about you. Delete. So think about yourself. What will you respond to? What kind of emails get your attention? What kind of LinkedIn requests get your attention? And don't do what everybody else is doing. Write terrible sales messages and blast them out. Don't leave bad voicemails. Voicemail can be your best friend. Let's say I have a campaign where I'm trying to launch a new product or service to my existing customers. I might send them an email, leave them a voicemail, send them something on LinkedIn, post it on my Facebook page, and blast it out through Twitter. All of that together. This is why sales and marketing alignment is crucial today. Crucial. So you have to work with your marketing teams to make sure they're doing these things in concert with you. Let's say I've got prospects, a list of 100. I've never talked to any of them. I don't know them. They don't know me. They never heard of my product or service. They never heard of my company name. I've got to get to those 100 prospects. I'm going to research first. And then I'm going to interact with them online. And I'm going to then start to figure out what message is going to get their attention and send that through email, through Facebook, through LinkedIn, through whatever channels I'm going to use, and have an amazing voicemail message that I can leave. Because I know when I call, the vast majority of them will not pick up their phone.
Great, and I'm glad that you mentioned Sales Folk and Heather. Heather being a really good friend of ours, and she spoke at a few conferences. In fact, we're doing a workshop together tomorrow in San Francisco. So for those of you who would like to attend specifically a session that Morgan will be teaching on cold email and how to and copywriting as well, I'll be sending some information in regards to that. So appreciate Alice mentioning that. And it looks like we have time for 2 more questions, and we have a lot of questions coming in. I'll make sure to send them all to Alice after we wrap up. But Alice, what would be the best way to reach out to you? Would it be email, cell phone, Twitter, LinkedIn? I know you have so many ways to reach you. So I'll make sure we cover that.
Yeah, I hope you'll connect with me on LinkedIn. And if you have a question that I didn't answer, send it to me by LinkedIn. You don't need to use InMail to connect with me. You don't need to pay for an InMail to connect with me. When you find me, use the drop-down arrow, and it will say connect, even if you're a third from me. But if you're connected to the cell, then you're going to be connected to me by a second. You can just go ahead and click connect, and then it's going to ask you to send me a message. So to connect with me on LinkedIn, go to my profile where it says connect. There's a drop down, or if it doesn't say connect, then use the drop down, because LinkedIn, it's different almost on everybody's, and whether you're using a mobile device, the mobile device looks completely different. But if you're using a mobile device and you go to my profile, in the top right hand corner there will be 3 little dots. When you click those 3 little dots, then it will say send a customized message, and you can say, hey, I was on your webinar, I want to connect, and then once I connect with you, you can send me your questions. And then if you want to meet with me, let me know, and I'll send you a link to schedule a 30-minute meeting with me, which I won't charge you for. I always offer that to everyone that's in my trainings. You can just have a free 30-minute meeting to ask me questions.
Wonderful. And also to answer some of the questions from folks here on the webinar, we will be sending the recording of today's session, so you will be able to review it at any time at your convenience, as well as Alice will be sending the handout, which you can use to prepare for your future sales calls. So one last question that I would like to wrap up our webinar with is, what would you recommend a startup founder who is building his sales team and was doing some sales for a while, and it's about time when he received or she received some early traction on the product or service and is thinking about hiring the first salesperson? What it would be something that you would recommend to that person?
I will recommend that you call me. Take advantage of that free 30 minutes so I can tell you, but there's no quick answer. This is it's treading on thin ice. You think, okay, I need a salesperson, I'm going to hire somebody. What most founders do is hire a friend. Don't do it. don't hire your friend to be your first salesperson unless that friend has got an amazing track record in sales and is willing to, really invest their time and sweat into your company. What you need to do is find a good salesperson, but what makes that hard is you have no track record as a startup. So a really great salesperson who's making a lot of money isn't going to switch from that to something that's unknown. And so this is what makes it hard for you to get a really great salesperson. When salespeople want to, good salespeople, great salespeople, want to go to work for a company, they want to know, how many of these products have you already sold? How many do you think we can sell? How much money can I make selling them? How hard will it be? What objections will I have to handle? What support will I have? And you may or may not have the answers to those questions for them. So you can get a salesperson, but they won't be a great salesperson. And the biggest complaint that I hear, and I wrote about this in my new book, which is coming out hopefully by June, the biggest complaint I hear are these founders hire a salesperson and then they say to me, I outsell my salesperson every month. And I say, I'm not surprised. So it's not easy. That's what I'm going to tell you. And there are many things you can do to increase your sales without actually hiring a salesperson. There are other ways to, there are companies you can outsource to. There are things that you can do. So hiring a salesperson seems like the answer sometimes when it's not. And the other thing that I found is sometimes there's somebody in your company already that's doing a different job that you never would have thought of who can become the salesperson. So there's just really no easy answer. I apologize. But if you are thinking about hiring your first salesperson, I'll be happy to talk to you about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alice, for joining us today, for sharing the tips, and I'm looking forward to having you at our future events, conferences, and workshops. Thanks, everybody, for joining us at the webinar. We will be sending a follow-up, and I hope to see you soon.